Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Linc'd podcast, which is your place for Eagles coverage, talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and everything going on the Sideline Sports Network. Don't forget to tune into the Gauntlet, which is going to be right after this show. We're going to talk all things NFL over there as well. I got my co-host Lindy in the house tonight. We got a lot of stuff to get into with the Eagles. The Eagles starting off the season 4-0, just like they started off last season 4-0. There's a lot of things to discuss, a lot of things to get into. But Lindy, how you doing tonight, man? How's the week been? How's everything going? And you ready to get into this stuff tonight?
It's been going pretty darn well.
So I like to hear.
Can't really say the same after the result of watching us have the overtime win against the Commanders, and then
we'll get into that.
Putting foots in them. So, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we certainly do, and we're going to go ahead and just get started with the show tonight. So, first up, we're going to go over our Week 4 recap. Eagles barely survive in the overtime win, 34-31 off the foot of a Jake Elliott 54-yard game winner. Jake Elliott has actually scored more points this season than the New York Giants football team. So, woo! Giants having a rough season over there, man. But I got to tell you, I was pretty discouraged. Or I don't want to say discouraged, but there's a lot of things I wasn't happy about. But I will say I was more discouraged when I saw the Washington team last night against the Chicago Bears. Was absolutely embarrassed. Justin Fields torched them. The whole Bears team was playing well. And credit to the Bears. The Bears played a good game. I think that the legend, Dick Butkus, is obviously a part of that 1985 Bears defense that was so great, passed away. So the Bears had a fire under them, but this was not a good performance by the Eagles team. Okay, and we have a lot of reasons that everybody should be concerned. Everyone should be concerned with these things. I'm not saying that everybody should panic. There's a difference between panic and concern. But I'm saying you should be concerned if you're watching this team, because some of these things are not good. The game plan against Washington was terrible. And I also think that it was probably more bad on the defensive side, but I also don't think it was a great game plan with the offense. You know, I don't like some of the ways that Brian Johnson is using to call the game. I don't think that he's allowing Jalen Hurts to be himself. I want to bring up the fact that Jalen Hurts is so effective using his legs, and it just looks to me like Brian Johnson has a problem with allowing this guy to use his legs. He's electrifying, and it opens so much in the offense too. I think we know that. I mean, we've seen that last year and also the year before. When Shane Steichen was calling the plays. I don't feel like he's really unleashing Hurts to the max level. Even though Hurts had an outstanding game throwing the football, I feel like that's an element of our offense that can take us to another level. I don't like the fact that in the second half, you completely go away from DeAndre Swift. I mean, I like Kenneth Gainwell. I do like him. I don't think he should be completely taken out of the entire game plan, but you gotta be real. This team is so dangerous and explosive when you give the ball to DeAndre Swift. So a lot of people say that they're trying to do this and keep him healthy and all this stuff. Listen, at the end of the day, you got to get the football to your best players and get it to them as much as possible. You know, even Goddard is not being utilized either. So, and to start this season, A.J. Brown was not being utilized either. Until the last 2 games, he's been amazing. So, I think there's a lot of issues there that still needs to be worked on in the defense. It was absolutely pedestrian performance by them. The secondary, I understand the secondary was thin and stuff like that. But guys, we can't do this when you have a receiver like Terry McLaurin who's so good,
Mm-hmm.
and you just giving these guys free release and leaving all this space around the field for them to dink and dunk all the way down the field and score touchdowns and put all these points on the board. It was not a good game. It was not a good performance. It's a division game. Washington plays the Eagles well a lot. Beat us last year when we're 8-0. But guys, this kind of stuff cannot continue. And the Eagles need to take this tape, review the tape, and say, we got to clean this stuff up, and we got to start playing more consistent all around football, which the team is not doing right now. So I'm not saying it's time to panic, but there's major concerns that needs to be figured out. That was my main takeaway from the game.
This wasn't a game. This wasn't a game to display mistakes that you should not be making. I'm embarrassed for myself personally, as we discussed in the last episode, that I thought this game was going to be a cakewalk. I felt that it should have been. Washington was playing worse than their record suggested, but I do also have to give credit to Sam Howell at the same time, being a second-year player, coming in and just trying to build a foundation for himself for a football team that hasn't had a whole lot of stability at the quarterback position. And this was something else that I touched upon in the previous episode as well. But again, I underestimated the notion of it being a divisional game. There's been too many times where Washington has played us very tough. And you alluded to the matchup last year where we actually lost at home, and it was pretty embarrassing. So let's get into it here, as we got a little box score that I have created for y'all once again, and we're gonna get some more of these added for y'all. Hurts 25 of 37, almost 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. His QBR on a scale of 0 to 100 came in at about a 70. I personally like QBR over passer rating because it takes everything into account. The grade of the incompletions, how careful you are with the football, risky, so on and so forth. So it kind of confuses me to where you see Sam Howell having a better QBR than Hurts this game, and everyone's going to go to the keyboards and like, oh, Sam Howell outplayed Jalen Hurts. Not exactly. He got sacked 5 times.
Jalen Hurts had his best game of the season. I don't even think it's close.
So that kind of confused me there. Over 300 yards of passing. A.J. Brown had a day yet again, almost 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ended up getting drug tested after the games.
so ridiculous, man. I can't believe some of this stuff.
And then we'll get into this, as well as the fact that, yes, the Eagles were still able to rush for over 100 yards, but a lot of that yardage was they had to fight for it. And you noticed that Cam Jurgens went out in this game. Suo Opeta had to come in. A lot of the holes that we were used to seeing for the first 3 weeks weren't there in the same capacity, but the offensive line really stepped up when they needed to. You go to the Washington side over here. Again, we noticed the 5 sacks for Sam Howell, but I did appreciate his ball distribution. 4 receivers over 40-plus yards. Terry McLaurin was getting into the mix. Curtis Samuel, Diami Brown. So that just goes to show the level of concern that you have for the Eagles secondary. 4 for 5 in their red zone trips. They beat the Eagles in time of possession by almost 5 minutes. And as you can see, the Eagles have not lost that time of possession battle led by Jalen Hurts since last year, week 15, when they played the Chicago Bears and they had to go to Soldier Field. And this is something that I have been continuing to stress upon, how important it is and the way this football team plays. It's so important for them to have to always win time of possession and do it convincingly in a
Yep.
way as the Eagles are one of the best teams in football in playing keep away. They get
Yeah.
on these long sustained drives. Most of them end in a touchdown. They build upon a lead. The defense remains fresh. They come in, they do what they need to do. They shut the opposing team's quarterback out, and the cycle starts all over again. This game, they weren't able to do it. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Eagles were 4 of 12 on their third down conversions. And
Not
when we
good.
get into our week 5 recap, you can't afford to do that against the Rams. We'll keep it simple, short and sweet with that. You're not going to be able to do that. So, with that said, here's some of the woes for the team here. Like I said, questions aside, the Eagles were sloppy with their penalties. I know there was a lot of questions.
A lot of these penalties should not have been called. Like, I can't believe
Yes.
on the one play they said Landon Dickerson was offsides. That was ridiculous. The pass interference on Slay, Bradbury, both of those were bad. There's a lot of bad calls by the officials in this game.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at that. It was they were trying to say the late hit by Edmonds when it was a throw over the middle to their tight end, whose name is leaving me at the moment. But you had that call, the late hit by Edmonds on Howell out of bounds. Logan Thomas, yes, thank you. I mean, that one can go both ways, but either way, you had 11 penalties for about 80 yards. You're not going to win football games that way when you're that sloppy.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about the lack of third down conversions, 4 of 12. They were only 1 of 2 in their red zone trips, and the Eagles are already struggling in the red zone, so this just made it worse. They lost time of possession. And I don't know if people are talking about this one. The Eagles missed out on 3 turnover opportunities. Whether it was 2 of them were in the red zone. It was the one where the Commanders running back ended up fumbling it into the end zone. Nobody was able to come down or to come up with the fumble recovery on our side. It still ended up resulting in a touchdown. Edmonds missed on a terrible interception opportunity that dropped incomplete. And then there was the other forced fumble that no one was able to come down on. I understand that. I understand that statistically, it's very good to see that the Eagles, I think, are number 1 in the league in terms of forced fumbles or forced those kind of turnover opportunities. But you have to capitalize on them, especially in tight football games like this. You can't afford to get that far behind. Secondary depth is still a problem for now. We'll get into that, why it can be a problem going into this game. And then my last one here, the defensive line. Is it me, or did they look inconsistent in terms of pressures? I understand they still got 5 sacks, but a lot of times they allowed Sam Howell to really extend the play and get into these scramble drills where as a defense, you can't afford the secondary to have to cover longer than they have to, because then at that point, you're just allowing a free for all to happen, and then because there's no pressure on the quarterback, he can then extend the play and look for an open receiver after their routes have been finished. That happened way too many times for my liking, and I don't know. Did you see the same thing with the defensive line that game?
I mean, there's this one play I can't get out of my head. I think it was very, very late in the game. Jalen Carter just gets right past this guy like it's nothing. Like he's been doing all season, by the way. And we're going to see more snaps of Jalen Carter with Fletch being injured.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that in the Rams preview. But listen, he has like a clear path to him, and then Sam just kind of like ducks under him, and he makes a throw for a first down. He makes a completion. So I'm just like,
That's
listen, man,
right.
you gotta get your hands around these guys and just drive them and bring them to the ground. So I think that there definitely does need to be some more consistency, but I'm concerned about it. I'm not panicking about it.
Right.
This is a great group, and I do think that they will figure it out.
So we got quite a list of team heroes for
Oh
that
yeah,
game.
baby.
I know
Here
we
we go.
used unsung heroes last week, but I think to me there was too many players to list that had a certain amount of impact in the win. So of the guys that we have on the list here, who are your top guys in terms of if you want to label them as an unsung hero?
Let's see here. These are obviously some good choices. My guy Zacchaeus, he's coming onto the list for the second week in a row. Listen, man, I'm gonna walk you guys through this little sequence. There's a play where he's pretty much open, and he dropped the pass. And I remember sitting at the bar, like I was sitting next to this random guy, I didn't even know who he was. And then I was just talking to him, like, "Here we go, bro. Like, the number 13 curse is back. Like, we got the flashbacks, the PTSD from Nelson Aguilar. Travis Fulgham was here. I thought, like, I was the biggest Travis fan, bro. I really thought that I was like, we finally got one.
That Pittsburgh game
And
was something.
we didn't get one, unfortunately. So the next play, though, he makes up for it, catches the first down. So Zacchaeus, he made an unsung play there, but obviously I got to give a lot of respect to AJ Brown. AJ Brown, last two games has been unbelievable. He's looking like he's clearly a top 5 receiver in the game. Had 175 yards. They were not on the same page in overtime. I'm not sure what happened there, but he could have easily had over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. In defense, I gotta say, like, we were really concerned about this linebacker position, but we gotta give credit to these guys. Like, I like what I've seen from Zach Cunningham. I love what I've seen from Morrow, and it really begs the question: as well as Morrow has played, has Nakobe Dean lost his spot? Because Morrow, I think you got to ride with him at this point. With the way that he's playing at 3 sacks on Sunday, the way that he's playing, I wouldn't go away from him when Nakobe gets back. When Nakobe is healthy, I think he's got to continue to sit because of the way this guy is playing. Until we have a reason not to play him, he's playing so well. I got to give it to him. So I'm very happy with Morrow, very happy with AJ Brown, very happy with a lot of the guys that stepped up and made some big plays for us.
Yeah, unless they're able to use Nakobe Dean in a different way to where he can be utilized in a rotation and being able to maintain having Nick on the field, because it's not very easy to switch linebackers with that green dot on their helmet because they're the ones that are getting the calls in from the coordinator. They got to make sure that the communication is on point. Everybody is where they need to be. So if you swap him out and bring in Nakobe Dean, well, you have no room to miss a beat in terms of getting the calls and making sure your communication is on point. That's going to be a very tough decision for them to have to make. I'm not sure in terms of Nakobe missing too much time or not, but we've heard the phrase already: if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's where I'm at.
Sirianni said this, I think, after the week 2 win versus the Vikings, where DeAndre Swift completely exploded. Almost 200 rushing yards. I think he was over 160, and it's like, well, okay, well, we're gonna keep going with what's working, and if there's no reason to change it, then don't do it. I think Nicholas Morrow, after that game, was the second highest graded running back for that week, behind Roquan Smith. Coincidentally enough, 2 linebackers that played under Sean Desai for the Chicago Bears. So, imagine that. But yeah, I mean, between him, Suo Peta, I want to touch on as well. Reason being is it continues to go. It continues to go, I guess, under the lines to the fact of how valuable Jeff Stoutland is as the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator simultaneously, and being able to build a unit with such depth that, we see Cam Jurgens go out with this foot sprain, and thankfully, from what we're hearing, it's just a sprain. There's no fractures, because I think it's called a Jones fracture. Cam has already went through this in college, especially when he had to bulk up weight from changing positions from tight end to the offensive line. So that's a lot of pressure on your feet. So thankfully it's just a sprain. It's not it's not any worse than what we initially thought. But you put Suo Peta in there after watching Cam kill it at the right guard spot, and the Eagles offensive line doesn't really seem to miss a beat whatsoever. That's very hard to do in the NFL, to have that level of coherence behind it. And I really appreciate that from a player standpoint, a coaching standpoint, and then a standpoint of execution. So I got to give it to Suo Peta as well for coming in as a plug-in. He's had plenty of experience before, and he deserves to be one of the heroes for that game as well.
Yeah, and he's obviously going to be playing a lot more now with Jurgens expected to be out. We don't know when he's going to be back.
Mm-hmm.
So
unfortunately,
you gotta give credit to what Jeff Stoutland and the team has done, really valuing those positions, offensive line positions. A lot of people, watch the NFL draft, and when their team drafts a line position, they're like, ugh, it's not a receiver, it's not a running back, it's not like a what you would call sexy position or whatever. But tell you what, it's an important position, because once you start having injuries on your offensive line, then that's when you start to have a lot of issues. A lot of teams have issues and have had injuries with their offensive line. You know what? You look at the Dallas Cowboys, what's been going on with their situation. You got Tony Pollard obviously coming off an injury, but he really has not been effective, and the Cowboys' run game has not really been effective this season. And a lot of that has to do with their offensive line not being able to, create the holes, because they don't really have the depth in that position. So that's why you really have to look at your roster and make sure that you have depth in those spots in case the worst case scenario happens, and then some of your starting linemen, happen to get injured. So it's great. I think
you want a perfect example in Eagles history. If you want a perfect example of how important having a steady offensive line is in terms of injuries, go back and watch the 2020 season. That's like the perfect answer. Go back and watch that.
Or I'll take it further than that. You can watch the 2012 season. Who remember that season? Jason Peters injured. Obviously a legend. Jason Kelsey, a legend. Mathis, and pretty much all the starting linemen got injured, and they had like 15 different starting line combinations or something that season. So it was incredible, man. So yeah, crazy times. That's why you got to invest in a good O-line.
Yeah. How about we get into this situation where we got some secondary help?
Yeah, guys, the Eagles signed veteran cornerback Bradley Roby to a one-year deal, has spent time with the New Orleans Saints, spent several years with the Denver Broncos, has a lot of experience there. So due to the situation on Sunday, and before I get into this, I really want to make this a point of emphasis. I know that it's easy for fans to look at a guy and say a guy is trash or he can't play or whatever, but I want to be serious for a minute when it comes to Josh Jobe. I do not think Josh Jobe is trash. I think that he is clearly not ready to be a starter. And
Mm-hmm.
that should not be a surprise to anybody. Undrafted guy, young guy, still developing, still trying to like make those adjustments. So they tried it out for a couple of games, and it obviously didn't go well. So I think that in time that he is going to come along because he definitely still has the upside there. But this was the right move, and this is reminiscent of last season when the Eagles were absolutely destroyed on the ground by the Washington Commanders. Brian Robinson and the crew ran all over the team. And Howard Roseman said, no. Nope. We cannot have this. So what do they go and do? They sign Linval Joseph. They sign Ndamukong Suh. And Jordan Davis was injured at that time as well. He comes back into the fold. Then that's when the run defense started to play so much better. So I think it's the same situation here. Like they experimented with in training camp with the idea of James Bradbury, or as the guys call him, All Pro James, in the slot. And I'm comfortable with him in the slot because I'm comfortable with him pretty much anywhere. He's a good corner. But for the team to be successful, the most successful, Slay got to be on the outside. James got to be on the other outside. And you got to get somebody that can do something in the slot. And Roby is a guy that has experience playing that role, and he's comfortable playing that role. I still think there's going to be a drop-off at that position. I don't think he's going to be able to provide what Avonte Maddox is able to provide to this team. So I think that in that regard, I'm not expecting him to be locked down, but I'm expecting him to be decent enough to get the job done. You got a good pass rush. If everything goes the way it's supposed to with the pass rush and getting pressure on the quarterback, should make it a little bit easier for these guys in the secondary. But I really like the idea of bringing in a veteran for that nickel spot, because I think it's something that we probably should have looked into during the offseason, but really didn't. And after doing experiments didn't work out, and that's what brings us to this signing. So I like the move.
Yeah, it's a combination of talent, and it's a combination of talent and wisdom at the same time. And I think it was hard to understand at first, like when we outside of the talent level of who Darius Slay is as a corner. He also brought an expertise with him to the football team, and being able to be a good coach on the field for his position. And I don't think Bradley Roby is an exception to this either. When you got guys with experience, a two-time Super Bowl champion, he was a part of the no-fly zone for the Denver Broncos, playing alongside Chris Harris and Aqib Talib. So, you become a winner when you play around winners, and I love that kind of mentality that he's coming to Philly for, and he's thirsty to compete for a Super Bowl. He wants us to reach the Super Bowl again. You love to see it. So, with that said, like it shows here, at 31 years old, he has built a career between starting at the Denver Broncos, first round pick in the 2014 draft. He then goes to the Houston Texans, and then his last visit was with the Saints. Last year, played 13 games for them before arriving to Philly for this season. He's going to start on the practice squad. Of course, Philly this week had to evaluate his conditioning, being as a player that came off of the street. Before week 5 last year. And then you look at it through 13 games and playing about 73% of the snaps. He only allowed about 54% completion percentage on 63 targets. You'll take that all day from the slot position. You'll take that all day. And then a little nugget here. Since 2018, Bradley has allowed a 62% completion percentage when targeted. It's not good. It's not bad. It's kind of hovering around closer to average to me than it is good. It just all depends on, matchups, etc., game plan, what have you. His yards per completion since that time frame has averaged out to about 11.5 yards. That kind of thing is meh. That's more than a first down on the plays that he is involved in when he's targeted. To me, there's no guarantee that he's going to be the permanent fix to that position, because you just alluded to it. The loss of Avonte Maddox is cutting deeper than a lot of people have anticipated, because of not just his experience in the slot, but
he's such a huge part of this defense.
Yeah, and for him having that short time frame, I think in his rookie year where he had to come in and play safety for a little bit as well.
He played great.
And he was great there. So you're losing a considerable amount of depth.
Mm-hmm.
And then outside of the struggles that we have seen with Josh Jobe, and I'm in agreement with you there. He's not quite ready. And, it's hard. It is sometimes hard, or most of the time it's hard to expect a lot from undrafted free agents. And, just trying to build up to the speed of the NFL, making a name for yourself, getting on the 53. He has done quite a bit, but it's really not enough for him not to be a victim of being targeted on a game-to-game basis. And for 2 straight weeks, we have seen that, where he gets caught in matchups with Terry McLaurin. You don't have Bradbury on the outside anymore, so that doesn't allow Slay to shadow the number 1 receiver, because you got help on the opposite side of the field.
Yeah.
And then it's just the domino effect from there. So I don't know if Bradley is going to be ready or not for this game against the Rams. I did not see any notes in terms of him being elevated from the practice squad to the 53, so that's kind of concerning. But at the same time, you get a guy off of the street and you're trying to get him back up to speed for a very important game that's probably going to be the Eagles' first true test of this season, 5 games in. Which way are you going to roll the dice? And that I think that's a really hard question for the Eagles to answer right now. But nonetheless, I do love that the Eagles have made this move, because we've seen in the past they're not afraid to add depth to a position that's in dire need.
Yeah, and it was obviously a position in dire need. And when you talk about the secondary, I'm just going to say this to close this conversation out. People really thought that it was going to be such a huge blow to lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but I got to tell you guys right now, How about Reed Blankenship? How impressive has this guy been? Every time I watch Reed, he's making a big play. Had a pass breakup this week. I had an interception week before. I really don't think the team misses CJ, but they clearly miss Avonte. So I think that what we're seeing right now is just, what Avonte brings to this team, and, how they're not able to do the same stuff without him. But we got to move on, man. We got to introduce a new segment that Lindy has for you guys. It's called Lindy's Lame Stat of the Week.
Yeah.
He's going to tell you guys a really lame stat that might annoy you. So, Lindy, time's yours, as Andy Reid used to say, or still does.
The stat was made even worse for me today after going over some homework and watching the Rams' last matchup against the Colts and how they were able to utilize Tyler Higbee in critical situations and how easy it was for them in a lot of those cases to move the sticks and get a first down. And I mean, I don't know what the direction is with Brian Johnson right now, if he's still trying to grow into his own as an offensive coordinator. I mean, look, I'm gonna come flat out and say this. You've had experience at the collegiate level in terms of being a play caller for the Florida Gators. You were able to work with Kyle Trask, who was a pretty good quarterback prospect.
And not only that, Lindy, let's actually talk about Kyle Pitts, because Kyle Pitts has been a disappointment in the NFL.
There you go.
This was a guy that at Florida was looking like people saying, "Oh my gosh, this guy is the next Shannon Sharp. He's generational talent." So you should know how to use a tight end. But do you?
88 yards on 19 targets through 4 games. A top 5 tight end in the league has 88 yards in 4 games, targeted 19 times. You mean to tell me that you can't get him going after what we seen Dallas Goedert do last year when you had 2 receivers over 1,000 yards? There's no excuse for this.
If Dallas didn't get hurt last year, he also would have had 1,000 yards. I have no doubt in my mind.
It's really infuriating because you're just limiting the capabilities of your offense and what a tight end like Dallas Goedert can do to open up your playbook and to just relieve any kind of defensive pressure on your team when you're trying to move the sticks to your goal line. I mean, just the way that the Rams used Higbee against the Colts, getting him up the seam in the short to intermediate game. It's just, and we're going to get into this a little more, but I mean, where is all this? I understand the offensive line is going through what it is with the Cam Jurgens injury, and there's a lot of cases where Goddard's being held back to work on double team blocks, to help out guys like Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift, just to increase the size of these holes for them to run through. But in terms of a receiving tight end, Goddard's top 5, and it's not even close. For sure. And you mean to tell me you haven't utilized him to this point to where he has at least 200 to 300 yards? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's driving me nuts. But all I know is that the way other teams are using their tight ends, the Vikings with TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Higbee, who I've been talking about in conjunction with our matchup against the Rams. Goddard can do so much for this offense. He can do so much more. Take advantage of mismatches. He's too big for some of the strongest linebackers. Safeties can't contain him. Corners can't contain him unless they decide to use some kind of press coverage. You have an aggressive corner who's a little bit taller, but even then, it doesn't work all the time. Goddard's a mismatch on that field almost every single game. There's no reason for this. I mean, it's been the story of feed A.J. Brown, and all the power to you because he's been taking advantage of that. But there's another guy on the field who can do just about the same thing as A.J. Brown can, who is I think more physical.
I love A.J., and as great as A.J. is, if he's open, then as he always says, always open, throwing the ball. But I feel like for the offense to really, really get humming, we gotta spread the ball. We gotta get Smitty going. We got to get Goddard going. We got to get AJ going. We got to get Swift. Like, this team has a lot of weapons. I think for them to really be at their best, we're going to have to start spreading the ball a lot more. So it's not only Goddard, but it's about pretty much everyone on the team. But with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this show up, and let's do our Rams versus Eagles preview, ladies and gentlemen. The Rams come into this game at 2-2, and the Eagles obviously 4-0. The Rams are a good football team at the end of the day. You got to look at a lot of players that they have and say, this team can do damage. I don't need to mention anything about Aaron Donald. Everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows this guy is the first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl champion, multiple Defensive Player of the Year. He can cause serious problems for us. And as we mentioned with Jeff Stoutland earlier, developing an offensive line is so important. We're going to have a great game plan to stop this guy. That's number one. Number two, you have Cooper Kupp that's coming back this week. This guy was the Super Bowl MVP. He's won. He had the Triple Crown that season as well for the Rams. He's an outstanding player. He's coming off an injury. So we're going to see, just how healthy he is. But we know the things that Cooper Kupp brings to the table makes the Rams offense very, very dangerous. And Stafford has strong chemistry with him. And then coming onto the scene this season, guys, Puka Nacua. I really hope I said his name right.
Yeah, you got it.
But this guy's also been amazing. He had 9 catches last week, 163 yards, and a touchdown. He's really killing the game as well. And that running back that they had the Cam Akers that they traded to Minnesota.
Yep.
Tyrell Williams. He's also like a dangerous weapon, good running back, catch the ball out of backfield. And calling the plays, you got Sean McVay. Sean McVay is one of the best offensive coaches in the league. And you know that he's going to cook something up. So as far as Sean Desai, I'm not going to be too hard on Sean Desai because it wasn't a bad game. But whatever you did last week, throw it out and do not bring it here because if you bring it, you're going to be seriously outcoached by Sean McVay. So I got to give Sean McVay major respect in that regard too. So I think this game is going to come down to the coaching. We need to have a great game plan. We have to take care of the football. We have to try to control the clock. Obviously, last week that was an issue for us. We put up a lot of points on the board and stuff. We're able to overcome things, but Washington possessed the ball for longer than the Eagles, which is something that they're not used to seeing. Got to hold on to the ball. Got to control the clock. Got to control the time of possession. Got to take care of the football. Have a good game plan. I think if you do all those things, you're going to come out as the winners. Eagles 5-0 is what they're trying to get to. So it's going to have to be a great game plan, but we're going to see how everything plays out. But I think that the Eagles will be able to go out to LA. Another thing I want to bring up is anytime when you saw it in the Tampa Bay game, there was more Eagles fans there than Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans. Every time the Eagles play in Los Angeles, whether it's the Rams, whether it's Chargers, that's pretty much a home game as well. So that home crowd traveling out to LA, I think is also gonna give them a boost as well. So I think the Eagles will take care of business. I'm hoping that they play a more complete game, and then we can start to build on this and get to the Eagles football that we have been expecting to see.
You remember the the dogfight that they had back in 2017 where the Eagles had to go to the Coliseum, and the Eagles fans traveled well for that game. So you remember that game, and I think it's going to be much of the same for them for this game. After doing homework on the Rams and watching the last game that they had against the Colts, looking over statistics and what have you, the biggest advantage that the Eagles are going to have, you have to establish the run. You have to establish the run. Rams are not the best in terms of rushing touchdowns allowed. They're 22nd in the league. They're 24th in yards per carry allowed at 4.4. The one thing, another strength that they have is their ability to, get their defense off the field. They're top 5 and top 10 in those categories. Offensively, they're 4th. Defensively, they're 7th. Number one in lost fumbles offensively. They're very good at taking care of the football. Their production in terms of first downs in the league, they are number one at that. So you have a offense led by Sean McVay as a play caller, and your quarterback is Matthew Stafford. That's a high level of efficiency, and I don't think the Eagles have seen that as of yet until they go to SoFi. And a couple of key notes here as I watched the Colts game today is the Eagles defensively are going to be a lot more tested than the offenses. I think that's definitely for sure. The Rams like to use a lot of bunch formation, especially with Tyler Higbee, Puka Nacua, and Tutu Atwell. They use both sides of the field to their advantage. They use those on first down for quick hitters to move the sticks. You've seen their bunch formation in third down situations to cover the immediate area of the field or vacated spots in the zone coverage. And then you got a guy in Matthew Stafford who's able to hit those passes over the middle just out of the linebacker's reach. They do that well. I think they're going to do it a lot if the Eagles do not condense their coverage. A lot of times they liked using Tutu Atwell in motion, who is short, shifty. He's very quick. They love motion. Coach Sean McVay is a very high advocate for that in his offense. So the way they use Tyler Higbee, which angered me that we don't use Dallas Goedert in that way as of now. So, I mean, through all of that, you also have Matthew Stafford. And watching this game, they get into the fourth quarter. He's banged up, limping around. This is a guy that just came off of a hip injury. He still showed poise, command, resiliency to get this win for the Rams. Part of that was the Colts shot themselves in the foot. The first possession of overtime defensively for the Colts looked absolutely awful. I think they just laid down and submitted themselves to the Rams, saying, you can have this win, because they were putrid. But other than that, the key thing defensively that I hope the Eagles do is just apply pressure. Just continue to get Stafford under duress. He's not going to get through all of his progressions. He's not going to see Nacua as much as he wants to. He's not going to have Cooper Kupp in those situations to constantly help him out. And all that goes together to say that for an Eagles defense that's going to be missing Fletcher Cox, you got to release the rest of the hounds. Get Milton Williams going. Get Jalen Carter going. Get Jordan Davis going. You got these big guys up front. Use those trenches to your advantage. Don't let your corners sit out there longer than they have to in coverage. Don't do it like you did against Washington. Homework for the Rams is bad enough.
The reason I don't think that's going to happen is because Stafford is expected to play. From the man himself said that he was. So I still don't think he's going to be able to really move around that much. And I also think that Stafford, to avoid getting hit, is going to try to get the ball out of his hand.
The quick game,
very, very fast. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. The Rams are going to try to get a lot of quick hitters.
Yep. The Eagles struggled with that week 1 against the Patriots. They go up to Foxborough. The conditions aren't the greatest. It's on and off rain. The Patriots use the quick game to throw us off. They get all those short little daggers to move them upfield. That's the last thing that you're going to want to see with us facing the Rams, especially that you got a better quarterback under center and Sean McVay, as creative as he is,
and a much better play caller.
So, do you have the Eagles winning?
I have us winning, but if we repeat a lot of the mistakes that we've made, then we will lose this game. Make no mistake about it. The Rams are a good team, and do the same stuff, we could definitely lose this game.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going back and forth on this. I don't want this game to be our first loss. Absolutely not. But I can't deny in saying that this is going to be the Eagles' first true test on both sides of the ball. Especially that Aaron Donald is on that defensive line, and the Rams are not afraid to put him on your weakest link, and that's going to be Sua Opeta. They're going to try and take advantage of him. They're going to loop Aaron Donald around and try and put him at defensive end and do a bunch of creative different things. So, score prediction for me, I do still have the Eagles winning because of the amount of trust that I have in Jalen Hurts commanding this offense. If that was Carson Wentz, then we'd probably lose. But I have so much trust in Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles will have about another, let's say, 28 to 34 points. I think we can hit 34 again, just not in overtime's sake, but I think we can hit that in regulation. I'm going to go with 34. Let's go 34-27. Birds got this at SoFi.
I'm with you 100% on that. It comes down to it. We need one drive to go win the game. I totally trust Jalen Hurts to rally the team and get the job done. Unlike with Carson Wentz, for obvious reasons. But that's pretty much
Who doesn't have a job still.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you bring that up. I read something a few weeks ago that was saying like Carson Wentz was writing letters to the Jets, like pretty much begging for a tryout. So it's getting kind of sad over there.
And
I don't even really think it's funny anymore to make fun of the guy. Like I honestly just kind of feel bad. So
it's like
at the end of the day, guys, that's another episode of LinkedIn in the books for you. We're gonna have a special guest next week. Marnie Schneider is going to be joining the show. Her grandfather was actually the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles before Mr. Jeffrey Lurie bought the team in the late 90s, I believe. So gonna definitely want to tune in for that one as well. Lindy, you got anything going on?
No, I don't. But I'm just excited overall in keeping this podcast going. The amount of different platforms that we have on here to watch, and yeah, man, we're still shooting for the moon right now, shooting for the stars, I should say.
Fantastic episode, fantastic work, Lindy, as always. Make sure you guys tune in. Coming up next is the Gauntlet. So for all your NFL stuff, make sure you guys catch me over there. And also tune in to all the other great shows and stuff that we got going on during the week on the Sideline Sports Network. We will see you guys next Friday, 7 p.m. for the next episode of the LinkedIn podcast. And as they always say, LinkedIn country, let's ride.